Welcome back to another episode of the Teardrop camper build. I had purchased this in a state of partial completion from another guy who lost access to his wood shop, and so I'm going to be finishing it. In this episode, I'm putting on some of the 1/4-inch plywood on top. First I'll put in the insulation in there. I'll also do the same thing for the hatch door, and then I've got to fill in with some epoxy in places, as well as put in this trim piece down here. So let's get to it. So my first step is actually I need to prepare for this window. That's going to go right here, and so I need to have some wood around, so I got something to screw into. So I've cut my boards, I've found out where center is, I've drilled some holes through here, that way when I put the glue on I can hold it. I'll hold it with a piece of wood here, and on from the inside I'll be able to use the nail gun to get those to hold in place. So I've got this all glued in here, and window seems to fit nicely. So I think what I'm going to do before I put on the outside plywood, I'm going to cut this little piece out. And I'm going to just get a starter hole. And I'm just going to try and follow along the wood here without cutting into this wood, and just the plywood down below. So I've got the frame built for the window. I've gone ahead and put in insulation, and I've done that on the whole camper, including the hatch. And now I've got some 1/4-inch plywood here. I needed to get full sheets of it to put on the outside of this, because it is 50 inches, a little over 50 inches from here to there, so a 4-foot sheet is too short. So I'm going to utilize these. I'll have a lot of 1/4-inch left over, but that's okay. I can use that for other projects. I also need to fill in some of these larger gaps. I've got some of that expanding foam for that. So I've got spray foam in most of the cracks. Let that completely harden. I also did the back and the hatch. And this area here was, I actually made it a little thicker than 3/4 of an inch, so I just filled in the rest. I've got an old hacksaw blade. This really works well for trimming off the excess foam. So if you try to pick it off, what will happen is a lot of times this is stuff that's down in there will come out with the foam, so it's better to try and saw through it, go through slower. Well, I had to kind of jury-rig this up a little bit to get it to work. The nails were not holding it up. I thought I had it fixed, but I had to quick scramble, and I grabbed some clamps and some boards to get the sides. I've got some clamps down below here. They're actually attached to the stools I have, but that's helping to hold that in. And then I've got these boards here with some weights, and this one's barely hanging on, but that's helping to push this board in. That looks dangerous. I've got the skin put on here, this 1/4 inch plywood all over the entire trailer, including the hatch. On the back I put on some 1/2 inch because I want it to be stronger, and I've got that overlapping a little bit to help with keeping water out. I still need to put some 1/2 inch along the side here. I'll do that later. So I've got this gap here at the back of the hatch, and I really didn't do a good job here. For some reason this is way off, but this part here is parallel with the side of the trailer, and that's what I needed because there's going to be a piece that's going to go here and up here. So that was the part I focused on, and I know I can fill in these gaps later, and I'll cut this so it's the same height as that. filled some of these bigger gaps with that thickened epoxy on the trailer. Still got a couple more here I'd like to fill in right on the edge right here. But I got them along the back. I'll show you that process on the hatch. I've got this whole intersection here I want with some good thickened epoxy and a nice transition between the two planes. And then this piece here I had to put in crooked, so they created this big gap in here. And then this piece never came down, so I'm going to have to clamp it. I've got my clamp up here for that. I'm going to be using this epoxy. This is came from a sporting goods store that was going out of business. And last fall, late last fall, I bought all of this epoxy and hardener along with some wood flour and some scrapers and such for $90. It's a really good deal. And everything was I think 80% off or something like that. So I bought a bunch of it, knowing that I would use it some way, shape, or form. Okay, now I'm going to add some of this flour, and you get it to about a thickness of about peanut butter. I've got another thing here I need to work on, and because when you build these things, water is one of those things you really need to worry about. You don't want water getting in anywhere. And I want to show you what I'm working with here. So on the bottom here, the guy who was working it, he made these walls before, and there's a 4x8 sheet of treated plywood on the bottom, which is good. But then the walls come out past that because that's the width of the trailer. These walls are just inside that width of that trailer. The problem with that is water, as it comes down here, will hug this, come in, and have a chance to get in between there unless I do something about that. So what I'm going to do is I cut a board that is just over an inch wide and about that half-inch, that's that half-inch plywood down here, and I'm going to put it in there and I'm going to gob it up with a bunch of epoxy so that I get a nice bond in there. I'm also later going to put fiberglass and epoxy over this and come down and around, so I'll have 2 times where I can get that sealed off. And I got to put these pieces on the end here. I had to cut them out special. I'm just about ready to start putting the fiberglass on. I do have to do one more important thing here. On the trailer, there's a lip. So you can see there's a lip here, and the sides of the trailer come down pretty much right inside that. There's not much of a gap there. The problem with that, from the research I've done, is that water can then get trapped in here and stay in there too long and then find its way in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line up about 3.5 inches, about a ½ inch taller than this, and then I'm going to taper that away so that it is we've got a little bit of a gap there, maybe 1/8 of an inch. So I've got to do that yet as well. I'll use a combination of sanders. I'm not sure what's going to work best. Then I got to give this whole thing a good sanding, and then I'll be ready to put some fiberglass and some epoxy on there. So that'll be next time. Thanks for watching. I appreciate the support.